Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Jessica Nicole. I'm a self-published author of YA fantasy romance novels, and in today's video I'm actually going to be doing my April reading and writing wrap-up, and I'm gonna do it a little bit differently this time around. So I am going to tell you what I read this month and what I wrote this month and how it stacked up to my goals for the month. But I also filmed myself reading all these books the entire month through. So I'm just going to basically be popping in to share with you guys my thoughts on the books after I show you the clip of me actually reading the books. So here we go. First of all, what I wrote this month, my goal was, I don't know why I thought I could do this, which it's doable, but I don't know, my energy is just downhill these days, just from work and stuff. Hopefully next year will be better because I will have more stuff planned. We completely shifted the way we taught English this year, so that was an adjustment. So next year I shouldn't have this much fatigue when it comes to teaching and the energy that I have to do everything else in my life left over from teaching. But anyways, my goal was 40,000 words, and then my conservative goal was 20,000 words. I did not even hit my conservative goal, you guys. I ended up writing 10,000 words this month, which, it's 10,000 more words than I had before, so words are words. The story's getting written. I am at 50K right now. Behind me, actually, on this door is the plot for Act 2 in that book. So I did manage to plot. So I did that at least. I plotted Act 2 and I wrote 10,000 words. And recently when I've been writing, having this plotted out has been a lifesaver. So I'm proud of myself for that. And then on to the books that I read. So the first book that I read was actually Kingdom of Villains by Ella Fields. I read this on my Kindle. It's a Kindle Unlimited. I would say new adult, because it's not YA, child. It's spicy as I don't know what. A new adult fantasy romance, kind of like a dark fantasy romance. Basically, the main character is a Seelie princess, and she ends up in a relationship with an unseelie prince when she saves his life. So here's me reading that book. Alright, so first book of the month down, Kingdom of Villains by Ella Fields. I read this on my Kindle. It's basically a arranged marriage, fated mates, Seelie princess, unseelie prince story. There's this tension between the kingdoms. Honestly, it was just pretty mid for me. My main issue was I felt like the author kind of wrote a bunch of scenes and then just smushed them together. The plot was very much strung together. I enjoyed the characterization. I loved the banter between the two main characters. I liked the kind of twist at the end, how she took something that seemed kind of insignificant around the middle of the rising action, and she brought it in to be this big point in the falling action. I really enjoyed that. I just wish there was more of that throughout the book. And this is super spicy, you guys. I am not shy about spice. I like spice in my romances, but honey, this was 70% spice, 30% plot, and I think we need to even that out a little bit. But yeah, it wasn't horrible. And first book down, I'm glad I read it. It was fun. I almost DNF'd it because I said, it was just kind of hard to follow, but I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad that not hard to follow, the writing was complicated, hard to follow because of how the plot was strung together. It didn't really follow any kind of story structure that I'm familiar with anyway, so that was a little
disappointing, but I'm glad that I finished it because I liked the story and I liked how it turned out. And yeah, I'd probably give this one 3 stars.
So overall, I would give that book about, mm, I would say 3 stars. It was good for what it, I don't know, it was good for what it was. It's like a standalone, which I don't know. I saw what she was trying to do, but it felt like she wrote a bunch of scenes and just put them together. Like it didn't feel like there was a cohesive story. I will say, like the twist at the end, while she was able to bring something kind of that felt like a throwaway scene and make it important later. I thought that was great. I thought the main character, Fia's character development was good throughout the book. I just felt like the spice was a little bit overkill. Like it just felt like, that's what I'm saying. Like it felt like a bunch of scenes that she just kind of put together because all these scenes had these same characters in them, and I didn't really feel like we got a good sense of the world uh, that the story was based in, and I didn't really feel like we got to connect to any of the minor characters. It was, I feel like we did get a good grasp on the 2 main characters, but the side characters kind of just felt like they could have been anyone, like they didn't feel special. And yeah, it just felt kind of disjointed with the plot. The plot line was not, it just wasn't there. So I gave that book 3 stars. I would read more from her in the future. I do like her writing style when it comes to dialogue. And it's not like I hated the book. Like I just wouldn't read it again. If I read a book 3 stars, I wouldn't read it again. If I read a book 5 stars, I loved it, plan on reading it over and over and over again. If I read a book 4 stars, it was okay, I just didn't love it, but I would read it again. That's gonna bring me to Vipers and Virtuosos, which is the second book that I read this month. And so here's a clip of me reading that. So remember when I was reading Promises and Pomegranates, book 1 in the Monsters and Muses series by Saffar Miller, and I said that it was a little bit too dark for me, a little bit too risque, and I wasn't gonna get any more of the books. And then I bought book 2 in the Monsters and Muses series. Yeah, I just ordered the other 3 books that are available on Amazon because I think I'm hooked at this point. There's so much heart in these books that I was not expecting. And the final book comes out in June, and you better believe I will be getting it. So I will own all 6 of these books. And I guess I'm on some dark romance kick right now, and I ain't mad at it. For Vipers and Virtuosos, this is the second book in a series of interconnected standalones. They are dark fantasy romance reimaginings of Greek mythology stories, and this one is based on the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice. We have our main characters, Riley and Aiden. Riley is basically recovering from a trauma. She's in New York on a class trip, and she meets this rock star that she's always idolized, Aiden James. The 2 of them share some time together, and that time, which should be like this beautiful thing in her life, gets kind of twisted, and she's kind of forced to go along with her brother's plan of letting all the heat fall on Aiden. And so we have a time jump in this book. Years pass and their paths cross again. We have a little bit of a stalker trope in this book. Check trigger warnings because this is a dark fantasy, not fantasy, dark contemporary romance. This is not fantasy. This is by Sav R. Miller. I read her first book in this series last year, I believe, and I really enjoyed it. But these are super dark. Like, these are super dark romances. The Monsters and Muses series. Like, if you think you like dark romances, these are very dark romances. So just keep that in mind. I was so dark actually that I didn't know if I wanted to continue the series. This one isn't as dark as the first one, Promises and Pomegranates, but this book actually prompted me to purchase the rest of the series. So they are over here on my bookshelf now, aside from the last book, which doesn't come out till June, but when it comes out I will be purchasing it. But yeah, I did really enjoy this book. I felt like the main characters had to do a lot of growing. I felt like they did a lot of growing together and as individuals. I felt like the plot thread was very good in this one, so I enjoyed that. It was a really fast read for me. It's really well written and easy to read. I annotated so much in this book, just so many things that I loved, so many quotes that I loved. I loved the imperfections of the characters, how she didn't try to, like, she didn't really try to redeem them because they didn't need to be redeemed. They're human, you know, they're just being human, and I liked that. I think it was really refreshing, so I really enjoyed this book. I would give this one 4 stars. Definitely will be reading it again in the future, and yeah, I really enjoyed this one. The next books that I read are actually all part of a series. So I read the Shadow and Bone trilogy. I have an entire reading vlog dedicated to this trilogy. These were not on my TBR, but I ended up reading these anyway. And yeah, here's a clip of me reading the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and then I'll come back and tell you my thoughts.
So this is day 2 of Shadow and Bone, and I just finished chapter 12. I am so engrossed in this story. I have been highlighting like crazy in here. So many good quotes. This world is so beautiful, and it's beautiful in its kind of brutality, I guess, is a weird way to put it, but that's how I interpreted it. I'm to the point of the story now. Alina is in need of an amplifier to help her with her powers. Amplifiers basically make the Grisha stronger, but a Grisha can only have one amplifier in their lifetime, and once a Grisha claims an amplifier, it can only belong to them. So she's looking for this deer so that she can like make a necklace out of his bones, to be her amplifier. So hence the title Shadow and Bone. She hasn't been able to like use her powers at will. Like, they only come out when she's in danger. So she's trying to figure out like how to use her powers up until this point, but she just kind of had like an epiphany about basically getting out of her own way, and I just thought that was really like poignant, like the way it was described in the book, and it just kind of spoke to something in me, so I highlighted like quite a bit around this point. But yeah, enjoying the book so far.
I started Siege and Storm yesterday, and I am on page 131, and I am a little bit nervous. Okay, so Alina and Mal have basically linked up with this pirate and his crew of like rogue Grisha, because in this world, if you're a Grisha, like, you have to be in the second army. So you have to basically go and like serve the Darkling in his army, which serves the king of Ravka. So they are basically like on their own. They are rogue Grisha that, you know, they have varying stories. Their parents hid them, or fake their deaths, or they ran away from the second army. They're deserters. Like Mal is a deserter from the first army. but they basically have all linked up, and they're with this pirate. They're like have formed this pirate crew with this guy who's basically like Alina keeps saying like he's weird, like there's something weird about his face, and so I'm trying to figure out like what he could be. I have a theory, but I'm not gonna say it just in case I'm right, because that would be a spoiler. So he's taking Alina. Somebody paid him to take Alina to him. So they're kind of low-key prisoners, but like she's making friends with the crew, and so is Mal, because Mal makes friends everywhere he goes or whatever. And there was a cool little quote in here that I highlighted about, she's saying like Mal is like basically he makes friends easily, he blooms where he's planted, and she called herself a weed, and the girl she was talking to said, I like weeds, weeds are survivors. So I just thought that was cool. But I'm a little bit worried because I'm like seeing something happening and I don't like it with Alina. She basically, the Grisha can have these things called amplifiers. I don't know if I said this already, but they can have these things called amplifiers which help their power, like they amplify their power, right? So it's written in all the Grisha books that a Grisha can only have a single amplifier. We kind of see that Alina's kind of testing that theory because of something she reads in like the Book of Saints. So basically the book covers make more sense to me now, because the first one was the deer, the stag. This one is like a water dragon, and the last one is like this red, like dragony, they call it the firebird. So basically we're on the quest for these 3 amplifiers throughout the series. So that's what we're on, but see, the amplifiers are gonna give her like more power, and she's kind of like, the more she uses her power, it seems like the more it kind of takes hold of her, like the more she likes the power, and it's kind of like scaring me for her character, especially like if you read the back, it's like she's got to choose between her power and her love, and I'm just like, I'm very nervous for what's gonna happen, but we're gonna keep reading and I'll let you know my thoughts. I literally underlined everything pretty much on the pages. Oh my gosh. I am on my way to finishing Ruin and Rising. I started it yesterday, read about half, and I'm gonna finish the second half tonight. And like I said, I'm speed reading this one, so I will let you guys know my final thoughts at the end, which is coming soon. I'm not ready. So these books center around Alina Starkov. She is an orphan turned soldier turned Grisha, and not just any Grisha, she's like this mythic, powerful Grisha. So the Grisha are people born with special abilities, and they are drafted into the army to help fight Ravka's, which is the country they live in. Ravka's like never-ending war against the 2 other large neighboring countries. So Grisha's powers are divided into like 3 categories. There are the Corporalkai, the order of healers and heartrenders. Healers basically heal, heartrenders basically kill. There's the Materialkai, which they're the order of fabricators. They can basically manipulate like textiles and metals. They make weapons and invent things. They create art and things like that. And then you have the Etherealkai, which Alina is part of. It's the order of summoners. They can control one of the elements, or light and shadow. So Alina's power is she can control light. No one has ever been able to do this, basically, and so she is taken to the Grisha school at the little palace to learn how to control her powers. There are 3 love interests really in this series, and so things get very interesting with that, which I loved. The action in here is like super, it's very fast paced and it's top notch. I love like the way the war was handled. I loved the action scenes. They never felt like they were boring or drug out. And I love the heart in this series. I love the humor in this series. I am so glad that I read these books. I gave book 1 4 stars. I gave book 2 5 stars, and I gave book 3 5 stars. So overall, this is a 5-star series for me. I just love that we get to follow Alina as she grows as a person, as she makes mistakes, as she learns to stand on her own 2 feet and decide what she wants for herself rather than letting people use her and tell her who she's going to be. So 5 out of 5. Definitely going to be rereading this series for years to come, and highly recommend. Also, the next book I read is also part of the Grisha verse. This is Six of Crows, also by Leigh Bardugo, and this basically takes place in a different region of the Grisha verse. And here are some clips of me reading Six of Crows.
I am really loving Six of Crows. It basically reminds me of like a classic spy espionage movie, but in book form, and that makes it so much better. You basically have these 6 people who kind of come together to complete this heist. They're not stealing a treasure or a thing, they're stealing a person out of prison. So Kaz Brekker is kind of like the shadow king of this gang called the Dregs. This is like their gang tattoo symbol, which I think is like so cool. But anyways, so Kaz is the leader. He was recruited by a member of the Merchant Council to get this mad scientist out of a Fjerdan prison. Kaz and his crew live in Ketterdam, which is like this trade city. It's an island, and Ketterdam was mentioned in Shadow and Bone. Ravka is basically this big war-torn country, and Ketterdam is on the island of Kerch, which is this big like trade island kind of in the middle of everything. So it's basically like a found family trope. Kaz rounds up this ragtag group of people to help him complete this mission. Kaz is kind of like the mastermind of the group. He's always like the smartest person in the room, and he's got this reputation for being like dirty hands, for being ruthless, like there's nothing he won't do. His backstory is so tragic and heartbreaking, and it just made me love him that much more. I love Inej, I love Jesper and Wylan. Matthias is getting on my nerves right now, but I feel like I could grow to love him. I feel like he's gonna have like a great character arc, and Nina is amazing. But basically they're trying to break this mad scientist out of prison because he's created this potion drug called Jurda Parim, which basically increases the powers of the Grisha. The Grisha are like these, I don't know, like they kind of are born with these superpowers. There's the Corporalkai, which are healers and heartrenders. Healers can basically heal you quickly. Heartrenders basically can kill you just as quickly. There's the Etherealkai, which basically have the control of like the elements and light and shadow. You basically have like a specialty at one thing. And then there's the Materialkai, which are the fabricators. They just basically can manipulate textiles and weapons and raw materials. There are these people called tailors who can actually like change your appearance. Like they can change the way your face looks, your hair color. It's really cool. But basically Jurda Parim will like increase the powers of the Grisha to like this frightening level, which is dangerous for the Grisha themselves because they kind of crave the drug, and it's dangerous for, you know, the rest of the world. So the Merchant Council wants the scientists. Basically they're telling Kaz that they want him to just, they want the scientists so they can like make sure that Jurda Parim never gets in the wrong hands. Whoop de whoop. Kaz just wants the money. All the characters have such cool, like interesting backstories. And I love how the story is told from so many different points of view. I'm at the point now where they are trying to break into the ice court, the prison. Nina is the only Grisha of the group. She's a heartrender, but she does heal too, because she ends up having to heal one of the members of the group, like before their mission even starts, like something crazy goes down. Matthias is actually a like Grisha witch hunter. Fjerdans, they hate Grisha, they think they're witches, and he's basically a witch hunter. But I feel like him and Nina have like a thing going, which is crazy because on paper they should be mortal enemies, but I'm loving that because enemies to lovers is my favorite trope. So I'm hoping that turns out well. And Jesper is a sharpshooter. Wylan is actually the son of a wealthy merchant who ran away from home. And Nej is basically, she was sold to a pleasure house, captured when she was 14, and one night she meets Kaz, and Kaz kind of rescues her from that place. She's kind of indebted to the dregs now, but I feel like there's something between Kaz and Inej that's more than what meets the eye. So I'm excited to see how all of these things develop. Also between Wylan and Jesper too, I'm sensing a little something. So I love that. I love romance subplots and fantasy. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this one. Can't wait to see how it goes.
So I loved our crows in this book. I love that this book is told from multiple different people's points of view, and so we get to see inside the minds of everyone. I think the only one that did not get a POV chapter was Wylan, so I'm hoping that gets corrected in the sequel. But even if it did not, I still feel like I know who he is. I still feel like I have a good grasp on him as a character. Basically, this is following Kaz Brekker and his ragtag group of teenage street thieves, and a reluctant ex-Grisha witch hunter, as they try to pull off the greatest heist in the history of Ketterdam. So these 6 are traveling to Fjerda to free a scientist who has basically created a potion that makes Grisha's powers like limitless. The downside to the potion is that the Grisha become addicted to it and very sick and usually die if they use it. So everybody's got their own motivations for wanting to go along with this plan. Kaz wants the money so that he can finish his vendetta against Pekka Rollins. Inej, who is, I love Inej so much, y'all. Like, Inej is my favorite character. I love her. Like, my heart goes out to Inej. She wants her share of the money so that she can basically right wrongs that were done to her in the past and keep those wrongs from being done to others. Jesper, the Zemini sharpshooter, needs to pay off his debts so that his father can keep his farm. Jesper's got a little bit of a gambling problem. Wylan wants to basically prove himself to his father and just prove that he can kind of stand on his own 2 feet. Wylan is like a runaway aristocrat. And then Nina is I said she's the only Grisha of the group, but she's not. But as far as we know, but the time the quest starts, she's the only Grisha in the group. She's obviously wants this drug like terminated, and so she wants to kill the scientist instead of bringing him back to the Council of Merchants and collecting the money. Matthias wants to kill the scientist as well because Matthias hates Grisha. They're afraid of Grisha. His whole mission in life is like to eradicate Grisha, which is very complicated with his connection to Nina, kind of complicates that. And I love watching that plot thicken and grow. I love watching Kaz and Inej's relationship, friendship, rivalry, whatever they got going on, grow. I love just the connections between all the characters, and it's found family at its finest. It's heist movie in book form at its finest, and it's so wonderful and beautiful. I actually my highlighter died in the middle of this book because I was highlighting so much, like just so much, and my highlighter died and I had to switch to another one. So obviously this is a 5-star read for me. Another book that I read this month is My Dark Romeo. I read this one on my Kindle. It was on Kindle Unlimited, and so here's some clips of me reading that and my thoughts on it. So I'm about to start reading My Dark Romeo on Kindle Unlimited, and I am praying that I do not really love this book, because what I'm doing with the Kindle Unlimited books and the books I listen to on Audible, if I really love them, I'm buying the physical copy to add to my book collection. But if they're just okay, I'm good with just reading them on the Kindle and going on about my business. So I'm hoping that I don't really like it, because this cover is killing me. I know that there's this really pretty cover where it's pink and birds, I think, on it. It's really pretty, but I cannot find it on Amazon. All I see is this one, and I hate this because I like to picture the characters the way I want to picture them. Don't give me this, please. I don't like this. But yeah, this is my next read. I'm also gonna be reading basically the whole Grishaverse situation this month, and that's my next thing going on. So I'm probably gonna be reading that, starting with the Shadow and Bone trilogy, with at the same time I'm doing this. So I don't know, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm gonna be reading this as my next Kindle read. Okay, so tell me why, when I start to genuinely enjoy this book, does my arch nemesis show up? And by my arch nemesis, I mean the damn miscommunication trope. Can we just stop? Can we please stop? The miscommunication trope at the end of dang romance novels that can easily be solved if the person just stands there and listens 5 seconds more, or stops being an idiot and acts stops pretending they don't have any kind of interpersonal skills and can't read between the lines of what people say, or I don't know, interpret social cues or anything like that. You're just oblivious to other people's thoughts and feelings and what they really feel, and you don't know that what people really feel isn't always what they say or whatever. I'm so I'm so upset right now. I hate it so much. Can we please stop? Can we stop? Can we please, just as a community, can we please just stop writing this? It is so frustrating and so annoying. Also, side note, I put stickers on the inside of my Kindle. I just put them under, in between the Kindle and the case, and I like them. They're very cute. But yeah, I'm upset about that. I am liking this book a lot more now, aside from the stupid miscommunication trope, but I am liking this book a lot more now. I giggled out loud at several points in this book. The comedy is top notch. The cultural references, social references are still a little cringy, but I do like the characters. There's a lot of grumpy sunshine, a little bit too much grumpy for me, and a little bit too much enemies and not enough lovers for me. It took them taking them forever to get to the actual romance of this book, and I've got 8 chapters left, 8 to 10, I don't know. But yeah, I am enjoying it though. I just had to get on here and rant about the miscommunication trope. Side note, I am done with Siege and Storm, and I read this today. I started reading Rune and Rising. I'm halfway through it. I'm gonna finish it tomorrow. I'm speed reading this one. So far I think this one is gonna be my favorite one out of the trilogy. But I think as it's progressing, I'm liking each book better than the last, which is great. I'm speed reading that one because I need to read The Six of Crows duology in a week. I'm gonna have a week to read the Six of Crows duology in order to include them in my April like reading wrap up. But I'm having a lot of fun with this series. I really want to get through it quickly too, so that I can watch the show, because the show looks great on Netflix. I did watch season 1 like forever ago, like when it first came out. Didn't understand anything that was going on because I hadn't read the books. But now that I've read the books, I think I'm gonna have like a better appreciation for the show. I haven't watched season 2 and I'm excited to. So yeah, that's my update. Please, let's like start a petition. No more miscommunication trope. So I will say that I really enjoyed this book for what it was. I enjoyed it enough that I ordered the physical copy so that I could have it and go back and reread it and annotate it when I do. I liked our dynamic between our two main characters, because oftentimes in these like dark romance books I feel like the girl is like a pushover, but Dallas was not a pushover at all, even though Romeo tricked her in the beginning. So the whole premise of the book is like Dallas gets tricked into like kissing Romeo at a debutante ball, which ends in her having to marry him, because the society that she lives in, like the tight-knit community she's in, it's very like the olden days, very set on propriety. Like I felt like I was in Bridgerton for a minute. But yeah, so she has to marry him. Romeo has his own ulterior motives. He's not really interested in Dallas, like when the story starts. The one thing I will say about the story is I feel like it's such a slow burn. If you love slow burns, like this one is for you, but this burn was so slow. I don't mind a slow burn, but this one was so slow, and it was so much enemies and not enough lovers, in my opinion. But when we did get to like the lovey-dovey parts, like the payoff was worth it. There's kind of like some mystery thrown in here. There's some action going on, and it's just, I don't know, it's one of those books that's got a little bit of everything, and I liked it. The writing was hilarious at points, and yeah, really enjoyed that. The only other like just straight up romance that I read this month, I feel like it was a pretty balanced month, which usually never happens for me. I'm usually a fantasy romance girl, but I read like just 3 regular romances, and I don't know, out of the 8 books that I read, My Dark Romeo, I would rate that book a good solid 4 stars. And also I would rate Love in the Time of Serial Killers a good solid 4 stars. Here is a clip of me reading this book.